Have you ever wanted to run a game, but Dungeons & Dragons doesn't feel like the right fit, whether it's you want a different kind of setting, not fantasy, or the rules just don't feel right for you? Well, I have 5 games that I think are good for beginner game masters to try out. Whether this is the first game that you are ever running, or you have run things before, perhaps in D&D, and want to try out something a little different, I think there are strengths and as well as some weaknesses to all of these games, but I do think that they all have an element of beginner friendly to them. And most of these games we have reviewed on the channel, so I'll make sure to put a card to all of the reviews. If these games sound of interest to you, you can go check out the more in-depth review after this video. All right, let's start with Fängelsehåla, also known as Fang. This is a dungeon crawl game. It is very minimally prep. It is very much a Swedish furniture store inspired in a plug and play for character creation as well as for the game master. If you are the kind of dungeon master that wants to be able to go into a session with minimal to zero prep, this is the system for you because you can create the dungeon as you go. It is very much dungeon crawl focused. So you're probably not going to be having a whole lot of RP moments, but the system does encourage alternative ways other than just combat to overcoming obstacles. So it is not just hack and slash all the time. This is a system that is going to shine for a one-shot or very short campaigns because the characters are probably going to end up dying quite a bit just with a dungeon crawl that happens. And I think that one-shots are actually a really good way for new game masters to get started because you don't have to figure out a whole long story arc for a campaign, as well as you can experiment a little bit. And, if one session doesn't go so great, you can kind of start new, have a clean slate for the next one with the next one shot. Now, some weaknesses with Fang is you're not going to have a whole lot of deep, character creation or in-depth mechanics, so if that's something you're looking for, this isn't the system for you. And it doesn't have a whole lot of guidance for a game master. It kind of expects that you know a little bit about gaming going in. So if you want something that's going to offer a lot more of the game master advice, not just here's the rules for how to create the dungeon, I would seek out a different system. So if you're a game master that loves a dungeon crawl and you have a group that loves a fast-paced, maybe slightly chaotic game, I think Fängelsehåla is a good start for you. Going to a different genre, if you're a game master that loves horror and is really looking for something that's going to capture that suspense, I would suggest you check out Dread. Dread utilizes a Jenga tower or stacking block game for the dice mechanic. You don't roll any dice, the players draw from a Jenga tower, and when the Jenga tower falls, it usually results in a character's death. Again, this is a game that is geared towards one-shots. This is a very narrative-focused game. You're probably not going to have very much combat, if at all. Instead, the times that your characters are pulling on the tower is when they are trying something that has a element of danger or element of failure that could happen. The rules are very easy to understand, very quick to pick up. So both as a game master as well as players, very easy to pick up. Even when the players, if a player character dies, the players can keep playing as an NPC, which I really like for keeping the group going, everybody involved. And the physical presence of the tower also adds this great sense of dread, pun intended, to the game. Now, this is a game that, as I said before, is best for one-shots. So again, if you're looking for a campaign, not the game for you, as well as you have to have the right group. They have to buy in and want to play a horror game. Horror games definitely need a clear buy-in, and you need to set the right tone, I think, to have a good game. And we do have a couple videos all about running horror games if that's something you're interested in. Okay, let's say that you are wanting to run a campaign. but you want something that's flexible. Maybe you don't want fantasy of D&D, or you want something that a rule system that you can play in multiple different genres, even if you're not doing a full campaign in each genre. I would suggest you check out the Cypher System Beginner Box. The Cypher System uses a flexible, rules light-ish mechanic that once you understand it, I think works well. It is a little different than a lot of other D20 systems, especially once you take into effect the ciphers, so there can be a little bit of a learning curve to learning the system. But again, if you're a new game master, especially if you are coming fresh and don't have any other systems that kind of are affecting how you think games could be run, I think starting with Cypher could be a great beginning. And the Cypher Beginner Box gives you all of the tools to create your stories, whether that's a fantasy story, a modern, horror, sci-fi. It is genre. It is not specific on the genre of the game. It does have some suggestions for how to play games in those genres. And while you are not going to get a specific like module or campaign in this beginner box, it gives you all of the tools to create it yourself, as well as some advice for how to be a game master. And I think that is especially something that is very useful and that the Cypher books do very well. You're going to have these tools for world building as well as storytelling. I think Cypher System tends to gear towards a little bit more of that narrative storytelling. There are rules for combat, but they are maybe a little less robust than other systems, so keep that in mind. And as I said earlier, some of the kind of more abstract mechanics like pools as well as the ciphers might be a little bit confusing to some game masters and players, so there might be a little bit of a learning curve, especially if you're coming from other systems like D&D. But if you are a game master who wants that freedom to create, you really want to create a world and a story and have a narrative-heavy campaign, I think that the Cypher Beginner Box is a great place to start. A big thanks to all of our patrons, especially Tabletop Unglued. If you enjoy our videos and want to directly support us, head on over to patreon.com/rollforinitiative and check out the perks of being a patron. Okay, let's get back to the games. All right, I'm going to throw in a game that technically is a GM-less game, but I think it can be a good place to kind of start if you are starting out as a game master and maybe want to dip your toes into more of the like leading the rest of the players, even if you're not technically in that game master role. And that is the Quiet Year. The Quiet Year, as I said, is a GM-less system. All of the players are creating this community and telling the story of this community over this year. It takes place after an apocalyptic event, and it is that like first year after it, and there's usually some kind of event that happens at the end of the year that is another apocalypse or something bad or massive change that is coming. Now, the reason I say this is a good starting point for a game master is you can learn this game and then be kind of the player that is helping lead the other players through running it. I've run this at conventions, and when I've run it at conventions, I have not been one of the players. I've just kind of been explained the rules and then help guide through all of the turns and answered questions or stuff like that. But I could have done that and played the game as well. This is also a great opportunity to build perhaps the community that your game is a larger campaign is going to start off in, as well as it's a really good way to learn this like collaborative storytelling, yes-anding, building upon other people's ideas. Now, this is not a traditional game in the sense that no one is playing a specific character. Players may represent groups of individuals or but you can also pass off who's kind of in control of those groups of individuals. There are no dice. Instead, you have playing cards and a list of things that the playing cards kind of prompt a question or an idea that you then expand upon, and you are drawing things out on a map. This is a really great game for people who are wanting more of a like cozy, quiet evening, there's not a combat heavy game, and perhaps want to focus a lot more on the story and world building aspects of it. Again, this is a really good place to kind of perhaps work together and build the basis of a world for a campaign. Okay, so maybe you want something that is more of the traditional D20 system, but you don't want fantasy. Instead, you want a sci-fi game. In that case, I would suggest the Starfinder Beginner Box, and I know that the Starfinder 2nd edition is coming out fairly soon, so you may hold off and wait for that beginner box. The Starfinder Beginner Box is going to give you that D&D-like rule system, since it's Pathfinder, since it's based on the Pathfinder rule system, but set in a sci-fi setting. Starfinder is a very nice blend of sci-fi, and there are some fantasy elements. So if people who are like, I want to play a magic user, that exists in Starfinder. But you also have spaceships and pulse weapons and robots. The Starfinder mechanics are a D20 system. It is a little on the crunchy side, but I think the beginner box does a really good job of introducing the mechanics. It gives you a module to run through as a game master, so you're also not needing to create the whole campaign and everything. Players can even use the pre-generated characters, so that can be very nice where you don't have to then also guide players through character creation if that's something they're not quite interested in starting yet. Now, the Starfinder universe could be a little overwhelming if you're new to it, and some of the game's deeper systems, like ship combat mechanics, are not included in the beginner box. But if you enjoyed the beginner box, you can go out and buy the full rule set. Starfinder has great tactical and combat rules, so if you're looking for something that has a little bit more of the robust mechanics for combat, as well as more robust character mechanics, this is a good system for you. And the beginner box offers a lot of great handouts and good visuals for players if that is something that they would find useful. I will give a honorable mention to the Pathfinder Beginner Box as well, if you are wanting to try a system like D&D, but a little bit different. This is a great entry point, and I think actually the Pathfinder Beginner Box is an excellent starting point for beginner game masters because it gives you everything that you need to play a whole game. It gives you pawns, it gives you the dice, it gives you the character sheet and module, as well as offers some of that game master advice of how to run a game, not just how to run this specific game. And look, being a game master does not mean you have to memorize massive rule books or master monster stat blocks. You can run a great game with just a Jenga tower or some paper and a pencil. You can craft amazing storytelling moments with the players that you have around you. And I think that's one of the great things that you can kind of discover if you step outside of D&D and try some other games. And perhaps you end up back playing D&D, but you can bring what you learned from those other games into your next campaign. So have you run any of these games, or are there any other beginner-friendly games that I should have mentioned? I'd love to know what you're running at your tables down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative. Bye!